Hi students, welcome to Understanding the edTPA assignment, part 2. Everything that you see here on the screen is located in the assignments folder under the edTPA project. This is part 2. You should have already done and turned in part 1. And we're going to be stepping through the instructions/template for the assignment. Just like with the first part, it's important that you do your assignment directly on this template and not on a blank document. If you don't, I'm going to be writing you and asking you to put it on the template. This part of the assignment is due March 8th, and it's worth 10% of your course grade. Part 1 was worth 10%. This is also worth 10%. Once you do finish it, you need to submit it to the link in the assignments folder on Blackboard. Make sure you're submitting it to the link for part 2 and not for part 1, which is in a separate folder. The purpose of this part is to teach you how to do data analysis on an assignment. And it's a pretty worthwhile exercise because you will be using these skills on the edTPA. Let's read the directions together. Imagine that you gave a formative assessment consisting of 12 quiz items to your class. So you gave a quiz based on your learning targets that you did in part 1. 7 of the items were aligned with your first learning target. We call that LT1. And 5 of the items were aligned with your second learning target, LT2. So understand that it's not the same number of items for each learning target. Also understand you don't actually have to make up a quiz and give it to students. That's not part of this assignment. You're just going to be using some hypothetical pretend data. So the first thing you need to do is just to take your learning targets from part 1 and copy and paste them where it says LT1 and LT2. Next, examine the hypothetical results of 10 students who completed the homework in table 1 below. And we're about to see a table with some ones and zeros. The ones indicate that the student got the question right, and the 0 means they got it wrong or incorrect. So this is a pretty complicated looking table, but it's actually pretty simple. Going across the top column, you're going to see the type of question it is, multiple choice, true or false, matching, a short answer, or essay. Each question number, so you can see there were 12 questions, questions 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. The learning target that each question was aligned with. So, for example, question 1, which was a multiple choice, was aligned with learning target 1. If you look over at question 5, which is a multiple choice, it was aligned with learning target 2. The cognitive process that each question was aligned with. So did it simply ask students to recognize information, to recall information, to analyze information, to define something, to apply skills, or to explain something? The names of the students are listed here starting with Agnes and ending in Lee. Again, these are hypothetical students. And again, ones and zeros refer to whether they got the question right or wrong. So Agnes got question number 1 right, whereas Chris did not get question number 1 right. He got it wrong because there's a 0 there. You see that the last column and the last row are blank, and we'll be going into that in a minute. You actually have to calculate those values. So this is the initial data analysis that you will do. You'll calculate some class totals, some item frequencies, and an overall class average. You can see I put here the points that you'll earn for doing each of these things. Let's take a look first at the quiz score total. So this is a simple number to calculate. You're just going to add up all the ones and zeros going across the row and put the total for the student in the final column. So for example, if you look at Agnes down at the bottom on the little table on the bottom right, you can see that Agnes got all except for the last one correct, because there's a 0 on question 12. So Agnes got a score of 11, and you would put that next to on Agnes's row. You're going to do this for all of the students. Item frequencies. So this is how many correct answers for each question or for each item there were. So let's go to, and you're going to put these scores in the bottom row. So for example, look at the first question, multiple choice question number 1, and you simply find all the ones. So Agnes got a 1, Bob got a 1, Chris didn't, but Debbie did, Grant did, Helen did, Ian did, Sam did, and Lee did. So you would put 8 as the item frequency, because there are 8 ones in the first column, and rather the first question. You're going to do that all the way across. At this point, the only cell that's blank is the bottom right cell, the overall class average. So this is how did the students do overall? So what you're going to do here is find the mean average for the class by adding all of the totals in the final column and dividing this by 10, the number of students. So you're going to add up all the quiz score totals. Remember we did Agnes after you've done the other students. Let's say it comes to, and I don't think that this is right, but let's say it comes to 80. So you would divide by 80 by 10, and that would give you a class average of 8. So you're going to do that and find out what the actual class average is. This is like the average score. 2.2 is additional data analysis. So I just want you to look at this table. The table we just saw before was table 1, but this is table 2, and you're going to calculate some values and put them in this table for each student. It's going to be easiest to calculate in Excel, but if you're careful, you can do it by hand or with a calculator. So let's see in the next slide what you have to calculate. So let's see what the additional calculations are that you're supposed to put in table 2. The first thing is you'll notice if you look at the bottom right, there's a column called quiz score total. You've already calculated this. It's that final column on table 1, the overall score that each student got on the quiz. Simply transfer that last column into table 2 as quiz score total. Next, you're going to translate those scores into achievement levels by turning them into percentages. So there are 12 items, and so all you have to do is take the raw score. Let's say it was Agnes. Remember, she got an 11 out of 12. You divide the 11 by 12. That comes out to about 0.917. And then you multiply the decimal by 100 by moving the decimal point over to the right two times. So that would be 91.7%. If you can't do that in your head, you can do it with a calculator. And so Agnes's first 2 columns would look like this. Quiz score total would be 11, and achievement score would be 91.7%. You're going to change all of those quiz score totals for all the students into achievement level percentages. In the next step, you're going to break apart the items and categorize them by learning targets. So remember, there are 7 items for learning target 1 and 5 items for learning target 2. And you can see which items go with which learning target if you look back in the first table. So the very first thing you're going to do is simply count for each student how many they got right in each learning target. So I don't have Agnes's scores in front of me, but let's pretend that Agnes got all of learning target 1 right. So she got 7 out of 7. So you would put 7 there for Agnes, and let's say she missed 1 in learning target 2. Under learning target 2 frequency, you would put 4. So these are just the raw counts, the frequencies of how many they got right in each learning target. Finally, in the last 2 columns, you're going to convert those scores into achievement levels percentages. So look under Learning Target 1, Achievement Level Percentage. For Agnes, if she got 7 out of 7 right, you probably know that's 100%, but the math is 7 um, divided by 7, because there are 7 items for each learning target, is 1, times 100 is 100%. Learning target 2, she got 4 out of 5 right. If that's the actual case, check these numbers because I'm just giving you an example. That would be 4 out of 5, or 0.80, or 80%. So again, the middle columns are just frequency counts, but the last 2 columns are percentages. So what would be their percentage score on each learning target? If these are the numbers for Agnes, then she would have done better on learning target 1 than learning target 2, obviously, because she would have scored 100% on learning target 1 and only 80% on learning target 2. The reason that you have to divide by different numbers, 7 for learning target 1 and 5 for learning target 2, is because there are 7 items that are aligned with learning target 1 and only 5 aligned with learning target 2. In 2.3, you're going to create 2 different bar graphs. So hopefully after completing the work this week, you'll understand how to do bar graphs in Excel if you didn't already know that. So you're first going to give a bar graph of all the quiz scores. These are the, you can either use the frequencies or you can use the percentages. Give your graph a label on the X and Y axis as well as a title. And if you don't do these things, there will be points deducted. And then finally, a comparison bar graph where you compare students' achievement on LT1 to LT2. I don't want you to use frequencies here, use percentages. And give your graph a label on the X and Y axis as well as a title. So each student should have 2 bars side by side, and it should show the percentage they got right on each learning target. 2.4 asks you to look at the data you just produced and analyze that data by learning target. Which learning target was more challenging to students overall? How do you know? So you're going to look at your overall analysis by learning target, and you're going to look at the target you used for success. So was it 80%? Which students did not meet 80%? Was it 90%? Which students did not meet 90%? And how might you reteach this learning target to the students, learning target 1? And then you're going to do the same thing for learning target 2. So which students did not master according to your target for success, learning target 1? And how would you reteach those students? Remember, when you reteach, it should be a different activity or something different, because it won't help just to do the same thing. And then for C, which ones did not meet learning target 2? 2.5 asks you to perform individual learning analysis on a particular student, Chris. So with which learning target was Chris able to do well? Which one did he struggle? And what feedback would you give to Chris? Now think about everything we've learned in the course to date on feedback. Use the hamburger method. Praise, specific feedback focused on mastery of the target, and praise. I want you to put this feedback in quotes. Don't say, I would say that the student should need to say, quote, Chris, I like how you, so actually focus that and put it in quotes. The final section of the assignment is to reflect on the process. Think about what this process has taught you about assessment that you will take forward into the edTPA and into your classroom. What part of the process went well? What was difficult? Did anything surprise you? What would you change to improve your submission if you could? Again, this is not a conclusion. This is a reflection that's meaningful and deep and has you thinking about what you learned, what you could improve, what you'll take forward, Anything about your own learning is what I'm looking for here. So that's it for this assignment, and let me know if you have any questions.